Can you imagine starting a new social media platform? The money required, the resources, not to mention the time and the risk. It's certainly not for the faint-hearted. Well, today you and I get to meet Noam Bardin, a Silicon Valley entrepreneur and veteran who's taking Elon Musk's Twitter head on. It's a Take on the Big Boys episode 642 of the 14-year-old award-winning Small Business Big Marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Timbo Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of gutsy marketing. I'm your host, Timbo Reid, and I've got an insatiable curiosity for uncovering marketing ideas that help businesses just like yours to grow. And I do that through weekly in-depth conversations, one that I put out every Tuesday with successful business founders that have walked the path before us. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner. That's why you're here. And you're ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. As per usual, team, there's marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. A big, warm, Small Business Big Marketing welcome to my new Patreon members. Desi Fraser, Daryl Van Roy, Tim Troon, Nick from Plateau Electrical, and Yin Yoga Mats. He gets an extra mention because he's a gold member. Jim Pick, Brock Tregellis, and Vliet Street. Welcome all. Thank you so much for supporting the work I do for small business. It's massively appreciated. If you're not one of the motivated business owners who have joined my membership, then give it some consideration if you're looking, only if you're looking for some additional marketing support and ideas from yours truly. Just this past week, I've shared a video I filmed from a very old cafe in Florence where arrogance was the order of the day, and geez, it was ugly. So clearly in that video, I explain why we shouldn't get arrogant as business owners. I dissect an experience I had at Italy's most famous sandwich shop where the queues, and there was more than one, were over 100 metres long all day. And it's not due to the slow service. It's all about their amazing product. And I pose the first of a series of killer questions to help my members think more innovatively about their beautiful businesses. So lots of good stuff in there. Membership starts at a tax-deductible $8.50 a month, no lock-ins, and I've just opened up a 7-day free trial for the silver tier, which is $47 a month. So go check it out at patreon.com/marketing podcast. You got nothing to lose, plenty to gain, as a number of members have already made back much more than their monthly investment. You'd hope so, wouldn't you? Good stuff. It's patreon.com/marketing podcast. See you on the inside. Now, Noam Bardin. Well, he founded Waze, the crowdsourcing traffic app and one of the world's most talked about startups following its acquisition by Google in 2013. I can imagine that would have been a pretty handy payday. He's been labelled as one of Business Insider's 100 stars of Silicon Valley, and he's completed a Masters of Public Administration at Harvard University, where he began planning on how to save the world. Not a bad CV so far, I'm sure you agree. But where it gets really, really interesting is that Noam is also the founder of Post.News, a new social media site he launched in 2022 that upon first look is not that dissimilar to Twitter. Yep, you're about to hear from an entrepreneur who's taking on Elon Musk's Twitter, albeit with a few minor differences, like posts are not limited to 280 characters. You can buy individual articles from premium news providers, and you can tip creators, and you can be a creator yourself and get tipped. Nice. In his own words, Noam describes Post.News as being, and I quote, for real people, with real news and civil conversations. Is he crazy? Does he know something we don't? Has he got more money than sense? Well, let's go find out. as Noam shares why he's taking on one of the biggest social media platforms in the world, how he's actually doing it, not to mention financing it. Plus, we have a really interesting conversation about the minimum viable product concept, or MVP as it is often referred. It's interesting because Post.News, it looks like Twitter, but it's a bit rough around the edges. But the fact is he got it to market, and he talks about why he's done that without it being perfect. And I love it. Love that discussion. If you're a gold or silver member of my Patreon, you can watch this interview over at patreon.com/marketing podcast. I started off by asking Noam what he loves about social media and what's his favourite platform.
So up to not long ago, Twitter was my favorite platform. Now, of course, it's Post. But what I use Twitter for is what I think 75% of the users use it for, as an aggregation of content, right? It'd be a great place to go. I'd follow people. I'd get the content they're interested in. I'd read it. It's kind of a broken experience for news, and we can talk about that. And that's really what drove Post, is trying to figure out how can we make social media and publishing work together, or today they're adversary.
Yeah, okay. I want to explore that a bit further. So Twitter's your favourite platform. Were you prolific on Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn? I can't imagine you being a Pinterest kind of guy.
No, LinkedIn actually, by the way, I think LinkedIn is one of the least, like the biggest potential in social media is actually LinkedIn. I think they've done a phenomenal job. They've got their brand issue of who they are and what it is, but I still think it's overall non-toxic, very professional. It's a very interesting social media.
I 100% agree with that. And I'm not a great social media user. And as a father of three, brought up three teenagers, I actually hate it. But LinkedIn, I agree. Particularly, this podcast does well on LinkedIn. It is good conversation and it stays so focused. No one's telling anyone on LinkedIn where they're eating pizza or what they're wearing. It is 100% business. And it's amazing they've done it. I think the UX on it's terrible.
Yeah.
But that's Microsoft.
Everyone thinks everyone's UX is terrible. But I do think that also I found LinkedIn to be an amazing tool because you're reaching out to people and contacting them. And it just works really well. I like it a lot. But to me, Twitter was my go-to social media network before Post.
Well, let's explore what happened there in a minute. But can you just humour me for a minute, Noam? Elon Musk paid $43 billion for Twitter. Now, I interviewed Pink Floyd's manager a few weeks ago about the business of music. Did I say Pink Floyd? I meant to say Fleetwood Mac. Despite the incredible numbers they were doing, I was still struggling to figure out how they made money because of the huge expenses. Now, $43 billion. How do you get that back selling advertising? What am I missing?
So I think there's consensus that this is going down as one of the worst deals ever. Uh-huh. AOL Time Warner is usually used as an example of the worst deal. I wouldn't be surprised if this will be worse. It was a deal done with no due diligence, no real thought. It was an ego purchase, right? And that's fine. When you're the richest person in the world, you have $44 billion to burn, it's fine. But the company's now saddled with debt. It's got to pay off $1.5 billion a year in debt, in interest payments.
So
right?
How?
So you think about that.
How do you do that?
I have no idea. To be honest, I don't think. And the question is also when will the banks step in and take over? Because frankly, I don't know how they're going to keep paying. And again, Elon can pay $1.5 billion a year just for his fun, hobby. But at a certain point, $1 billion here, $1 billion there becomes real money at a certain point.
Have you met him?
Yes, I've met him a few times.
And?
He was my hero. A few years ago, people asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'd say, I want to be Elon Musk. He's the most amazing entrepreneur ever who's done really the most amazing companies and widely different fields and really was a super impressive person. And just like Twitter is going down is probably the worst deal, I think the brand destruction that happened to Elon Musk in the last year is also something for the records. I don't think there's ever been a brand that's gotten destroyed so fast, so dramatic. Maybe Enron. I don't know what would be a good example.
Do you mean personal brand?
Personal brand, yes.
Incredible. A lot of ego there. Noam, given the huge numbers involved in social media, why aren't there more social mediums?
Well, so right now, there were, if you go back 15 years, there were a lot of attempts. And then basically Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube took over and became the dominant platform. What I believe is now we're at the end of that arc. And I think the best example is TikTok and YouTube, right? TikTok is not a clone of YouTube. It's something else. But it's a very similar use case done differently. I think we're going to see more of that now around the social space. And since everything happened with Twitter, there's been a whole slew of these Twitter clones that have come out, which are basically copying Twitter one for one and just with some kind of idea that we're going to be better. And I don't think that ever works. I think also Twitter was not a healthy company before Elon Musk, right? People kind of assuming it was this amazing company and then Elon Musk came and broke it. It was a sick company before. It never had a full-time CEO. It was losing money and struggling and dealing with toxicity. All the issues were there. He definitely accelerated a lot of things. I mean, I'll give him credit. I don't want to take away his responsibility. But at the same time, the basic model of Twitter was broken before Elon Musk came.
You were integral, slight diversion here, but all leading to Post. You were critical in bringing Waze, in Waze's success, which is the crowdsourcing platform, app, I suppose you call it, that we all knew back in the day. You sold it to Google for a lot of dough. You were CEO at Waze. What's it like, just out of interest, being at a company from scratch when it's an idea? It's an idea and it's not a big idea and there's not a lot of people around, to all of a sudden selling out to the likes of Google for however much. Can you explain what that feeling's like?
So it's never that feeling. They say entrepreneurs sleep like babies. They wake up every hour and cry, right? And that's very much what happens. You're never in a moment of this great success. You're in incremental improvements and challenges and problems, and nothing is ever smooth sailing. When you look back and you tell the story, oh, a strategic plan, I knew, I was amazing, I did this and that. But the reality is you're panicking and struggling and all the way, just like with any business. There's no difference. Yes, we managed to have a very good exit. We built a great product, an amazing community, still have an amazing community that built this. We approached mapping very differently than anyone had done. We believe strongly in crowdsourcing. A lot of things we did right. We did a lot of things wrong as well. But, history is written by the winners. So just today, I published a post on Post.
I saw that.
About the acquisition.
Yeah.
And actually, Facebook had originally acquired us, and then Google. It's the whole story. You can read it on my post. But the point was, it was very close to me being the loser CEO who didn't sell the company, and the company went bankrupt. Right? Our B round we raised literally 2 weeks before running out of cash. So everybody likes to tell these hero stories of hockey sticks. The reality is that doesn't happen day to day.
Yeah, okay. Nice to hear. It's not all fairy tales. Just to finish the discussion broadly on social media, Noam, why haven't we seen, and maybe we haven't, I just haven't seen them, but why aren't we seeing verticals in social media by industry? For example, why isn't there a social media for plumbers? Why isn't there one for stay-at-home mums? Are the markets just too small?
First of all, I obviously don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But I think in general, and this is our thesis at Post, I think people want to have one feed with all their content in that feed. They don't want to have multiple feeds. Now, they have multiple feeds for different use cases. So you open up TikTok to get entertained, right? You open it up, you can watch your videos, you get entertained. You open up YouTube, you want to watch slightly longer form. You open up Netflix, you want to watch really long form, right? But these are all different approaches to entertainment. Sometimes you want short form, sometimes you want long form. I don't think we're going to have another social media network that's a social media per se. When we think about what's Facebook, it's social media, right? Social media is a feature now. And I think every product that we see will use social media in different ways according to what it's doing. So to me, that's kind of the change that's coming. Is how do you use social media for a specific use case? Right, to solve something or to make something better than it was before versus just social media for the sake of connecting people. But let's not forget, when Facebook started, it was still on the web. It was before mobile, right? And actually connecting people was a big deal. Today, it's one permission on your phone, and every app now has all your contacts and all your connections and everything, right? That's gone away. So much has changed. And the companies like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, et cetera, they're created in a moment of time. And that moment of time does not replicate. There was a certain technology base at the time, certain constraints, what consumers accepted, et cetera. And all those created these magical companies, right? And also that changes and we move on. Yahoo and AOL exist today, right? And they didn't disappear, but they're definitely not what they were before.
Interesting. Yeah, it's incredible how things can be so big and then just disappear off the face of the earth. Quite incredible. Noam, let's talk Post.News. What problem was so big so big that compelled you to create an entire new social medium? I find it incredible that I'm actually speaking to someone who's doing this. So, yeah, what was the big itch?
Most of my friends told me I'm an idiot and I'm crazy to try and go into this space. This is the worst space to be in, right? There isn't much money. There is a lot of regulation. Everybody hates you no matter what.
Beautiful.
But I do believe that we're in this kind of terrible move towards authoritarianism globally. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I'm not just saying it's all social media, but social media is a big part of that. Pushing this toxicity, pushing misinformation and disinformation, allowing people to basically broadcast their crazy conspiracy theories. And to me, that's one of the biggest challenges. There's kind of climate change and there's that. To me, those are the two biggest challenges we have. I don't want to live in Russia or a Russia-like country. And I think very much and it's not an American problem, right? Israel, Brazil, Austria, wherever you go, Hungary, Poland, it's an ongoing problem. So thinking about what I could do for this, because, complaining is easy, right? Everyone can complain. So I've been thinking a lot about news and social media. And I think there are a few things. My insights, which is sort of why we built Post.News, is starting out from the fact that consumers want to consume news in a feed, right? We've seen that today. Facebook, Twitter were the largest sources of traffic for the newspapers, et cetera. And so that to me has already been done. The younger you get, the more you consume off social media. I think we like having the discussions and the like and the share and everything that goes with that. So social media is the new newspaper. Problem is, the social media does not have a model to work with the publishers. And so it sucked all the money out of the publisher's space. And basically we see newspapers all over the world going bankrupt, struggling, and being bought by industrial interests, which obviously begin using them for their own political interests. And we're kind of losing the free press, which is so important for democracy. There's a lot of problems with press. It's like I don't remember who was said that democracy is the worst form of government, but it's the best that we have. Right. So same thing. There's a lot wrong with the press, but we need a free press out there. And so the first thing we're trying to solve is really that kind of business model. Right. We want a situation where if we're successful, then the press is successful as well. And our platform, we're calling it a social media platform for news. Right. We're optimized for news. And so we work with today 25 different publishers who ingest their content directly into the platform. And then you can read the news in your feed without having to bounce to all the different sites. We all know the experience that somebody shares an article with you, you click on it, you go to a site, you're bombarded with ads, auto-playing video, and then a paywall that wants you to subscribe. And I just want to read the article. Like, what do you want from me? Right?
Just that alone, very interesting what you're saying, Noam, so keep going. But that alone, it just fascinates me. You go to these news sites, and the last thing they are considering is the reader. They've got their advertisers and they've got the amount of advertising and pop-up, it's just insane. Like, at what point does someone go, you know what? That is the optimal page, my friend. It doesn't happen.
And this is the problem, right? We're basically training people not to click on reputable news, premium news publishers, and instead they can consume all the lies or my heavily researched on TikTok idea that I write in a post, right? They'll read that, but they're not going to read what the New York Times says because they know they're going to hit the paywall. And so that's the one thing we want to solve on several levels. One, we want the content to be in the feed, so it's standard, one way. Two is we've launched a micropayments network. So you can buy individual articles for 2 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents, whatever it is. You don't need to subscribe to one newspaper. You subscribe to one, you also get one view of the world, right? You want to read multiple views and get different perspectives. I don't believe there's such a thing as the truth. But when you read a lot of different opinions, you can figure out more or less what's right and what's wrong, right? And to do that, we need to have the business model in place. So those are the two big things we've done around news. The third is around toxicity. The toxic content that is pushed by social media platforms is not a bug, it's a feature. It's by design. Because these platforms are built on advertising, and so they need you to stay on the platform doom scrolling as long as possible. If you click out, that's bad for them because they can't show you ads. So they don't want you to click out. If you stay on the platform and you scroll, you have an algorithm that's showing you content. What that algorithm will learn is that the more hateful the content, the more time you're going to spend on the platform. We're monkeys basically, right? We respond to fear and to hate and everything very well, and it keeps you engaged.
We love watching a car accident.
Exactly. And so these platforms keep surfacing the worst of us. And you kind of reach this point where you begin thinking, oh, no, this is the world, right? Oh my God, everyone who doesn't agree with me is evil, right? And they must be terrible people, right? Take these two people, take like a redneck from Alabama and a woke kid from New York, put them in the same room, they'll be best friends. Put a computer screen between them, they'll hate each other. And it's the same people, right? And this is really what we're trying to deal with Post. We discussed the model, but basically we want to heavily moderate the platform. We're a platform not for everyone. We're for the 85% of what I call regular people, people that aren't culture warriors. They don't go online to call people names and to promote misinformation. Regular people that want to get the news, they want it in the social feed, they want to interact and share things, etc. But they don't want to be called a communist or a fascist.
Okay, let's work our way back because it's an audio interview. People can't see Post right now, or they can go to Post.News and have a look. Give us the pitch. How do you guys work? You're in New York, but you spend a lot of time in Silicon Valley. What is it? Is there a one-line pitch that you used around Post to get people interested, or what was the kind of words that you used, Noam, to raise attention?
Well, I think the basic words are: news today is a $130 billion industry globally, and it has not really changed. You turn on TV news, it's more or less the same. You go to a newspaper, regardless if it's a physical piece of paper or HTML or an app, it's the same thing, right? The average age of a subscriber in the US is 55, right? So I subscribe to newspapers because I'm old. I grew up with a piece of paper. My daughters were in college. They have no idea what I'm talking about. You go to a site so that someone else can tell you what to read? And each of these sites is a separate thing. Like, where do we have such a terrible, kind of broken market for content? And so I believe the news is going to change dramatically in the next 10 years. And I'm hoping that we can change it for the better. We'll see.
Working our way through what you can do as a contributor on Post, you can write and share posts of any length. So you're not constricted by 140 characters or whatever it may be. You can comment, like, share, and repost. That's we're all used to that. Buying individual articles with these micro payments from premium providers, like, just to name three, you got the Boston Globe, the LA Times, NBC News. So, heavy hitters. And
although those are good examples, they share their content on Post like they would on Twitter, which is fine.
It's not exclusive.
We allow that. But if you think about the New Yorker, Wired, Vanity Fair, USA Today, The Independent, etc., they ingest directly to the platform. And then they set the price, but you can read an article for 1 cent, 2 cents that's in the platform. We also have a lot of newsletter writers who are ingesting their content and posting their content on Post. Some of them you can set up and ask for a price. Some of them live on tips. You can tip anyone on the platform. And so when you run into something interesting, you can leave them $2, leave them 10 cents, you leave whatever amount you want. And when you think about a 1 cent article, that's like a $10 CPM in the advertising world, right? That's 1,000 impressions, right? So when you begin thinking in those terms, it kind of changes everything. It's like, wow, $10 CPM, what do I get? Well, a 10 cent article is $100 CPM, right? So we're caught in this world believing there's advertising subscription. Those are the two business models for the content online. Mm-hmm. Why? Different types of content needs different business models. And we hope that micropayments will become kind of the tool for the content that's not hundreds of millions of users, lowest common denominator, cat videos, or, a specific newsletter of finance. It's very narrow, it's very expensive. Everything else is in the middle.
So you've got all these big news outlets who you can micro pay to, you can tip. What about a little podcaster like me who says, hey, just done an interview with such and here's a couple of insights. Could I get tipped? And
of course,
can the person next door who has no podcast or blog or any news kind of outlet, but just likes to provide comment, can he or she be tipped as well?
Yeah. So anyone on the platform can write anything. You can write 3 words like on Twitter and send it, or you can write a 5,000 word article. You can embed video or audio or images or links or anything you want. So you can build a whole blog however you want. And then when you publish it, it obviously goes to your followers, and we have an algorithm that'll help promote it on the platform. Anyone can tip you. You can decide to paywall it for money. Say, I want 5 cents to read it. That's your decision. But it really is about, we want as much content on the platform as possible, right? We don't, news today is not these 8 categories of business, sports, politics, whatever. News is everything, right? There's like so many things that interest people that are out there that are available and written by so many different people. So you've got journalists for publications, you've got these newsletter writers, you've got experts, you've got scientists, you've got just someone who happens to be somewhere or someone who's obsessed with something, right? And there's always someone who wants to read that content. Our challenge is to allow you to create the content, match up the people that are interested in that content, and provide monetization for you and obviously for us.
No, it feels very much like a news platform. I'm being half facetious here. What role the cat falling off the ladder video? Or is there no role on Post?
No, there is. There definitely is. And humor and fake account. Like the things about social media that I love so much is the diversity that's going on there, right? There's so many different things. I believe there should be sort of everything should be there, but it should all be accessible on the platform. That doesn't mean that everything has to be free, but everything has to be one click away from consuming. And the biggest problem is friction, actually. When you ask people why, the most publishers today will allow you to read extra articles if you sign up and give them their email. But nobody does that because we know what's going to happen. You give the email, they're going to spam you, they're going to this, they're going to that, whatever. We're all too lazy in that sense, or too jaded, to actually do this. And so our philosophy is everything's one tap. Nothing is, you don't need a keyboard. Everything's one tap. Friction is the enemy. And we have to make it simple and easy to do. We've had nonprofits raise money on the platform. We've had politicians on the platform talking about what they're doing. We've had creators of all different kinds, a lot of photographers. We do really high resolution imagery. A lot of photographers are on the platform. A lot of Ukrainian journalists are publishing. So you get a whole slew of different things. And we're not out to say what is news and what isn't news. That's up to you to decide what you want to read and what you don't want to read.
My Post handle is @TimboReid. I haven't posted yet. I've had a good look through it. Talking about friction or frictionless, if someone wants to tip me, because when I registered on Post, I didn't have to give my PayPal or my bank details or my credit. Is it a simple?
No, you don't have to do anything.
You put your credit card in once and then it's after that. No,
you don't need to do anything. When you join Post, we're going to give you. So our economy is what we call points.
Ah, yes.
Putting aside the regulatory reasons, but a point is basically 1 cent. Okay, so when you come to the platform, we're going to give you 50 cents or 50 points immediately for free. You take those. You can buy content. You can tip. You can do whatever you want. Every a post has a tip button on it. You just click on it, say how much you want to tip, and that's it. It transfers to you. When you decide you want to take money out, that's when we will ask you for your bank details, et cetera, and actually look in to make sure you're not fraud and money laundering, et cetera. And at the same time, when you run out of points, that's when we'll ask you for your credit card. Say, hey, you spent 50 points, you must have liked it. And then you can buy bulks of points, $3, $10, $15, get a bulk of points that you use. When you buy the points, that's where we make our profit. We take a slice of that. And that's how we can afford to build this platform without having to rely on advertising. And again, we're very much afraid of that toxic nature that advertising does, this constant race of engagement. For Facebook's success is if you spend 5 hours doom scrolling and walk away feeling, angry and mad and depressed about the world. That's success for them because you saw lots of ads. For us, if you come for 15 minutes, read 3 articles that you liked and go away feeling smarter, that's success for us. We don't need you to spend all those hours doom scrolling, but we do need to find good content that you're going to want, that you want enough that you'd be willing to pay or tip or engage with.
One of the unique selling propositions of Post is that articles are being reviewed. Are they being reviewed by humans? Do you have just a very, very large... How is this working?
So they're not being reviewed. Our model is very different. Our model is built on reputation scores. So every person on the platform has a score that we keep, where we track all the positive and negative things they do on the platform. And the bigger the score, the more weight you have in the algorithms. And that goes both for distribution and for moderation. You can flag. We count on the community to flag content. So we have an AI machine that actually looks through, if you put swastikas or homophobic content, whatever, that we'll catch that. But usually, people are more sophisticated than that. So content will get flagged. Right now, that flag, that content will go up to one of our moderators who will look at it and make a call. Does this violate our content rules? And our content rules are pretty simple. Basically, don't be an asshole, right? If you want to be a bigot or a racist, whatever, there are a lot of platforms for you. Go there. We just want people who want to engage without all the craziness.
Interesting. Okay. How many moderators do you have, just out of interest? Give us a sense of size. That's going to grow.
No, so the moderations actually works very well because we have a lot of algorithmic tools that help in place. We have 3 people that work on moderation. Long term, though, our goal is to have the moderation being done by the community, very similar to Waze or to Wikipedia. Because frankly, I don't know what's going on in Australia, right? I have no idea what's happening there. And for me or for someone in a call center in the Philippines to try and moderate content in Australia, it's practically impossible. Like, what do I know about the politics in Australia? But grab any Australian, in the street, they'll know exactly what's going on, right? And so our vision is that there'll be a community in Australia, people who've proven themselves over time to be reasonable and to following our rules and our guidance, and they'll be the ones who will make the decision about content in Australia. If your content got taken down, you'll be able to appeal that. They'll go up to one of our employees. But in the grand scheme of things, we want to have communities moderate their own country in their own language, in their own set of issues. Immigration hatred in France is very different than white supremacy in the U.S. Right? So the fact that you're an expert on one doesn't mean that you're expert on the other. But at the same time, we want local French people to make that call and local American people to make that
call. Okay, the word crazy just crept into my mind as you're speaking, Noam, for the first time. Are you not living in a fairy tale to think that all the good guys and girls in the world are going to come into Post and moderate so that we all have a great experience and there's no bad stuff and there's no negativity and it's not a cesspool of negativity, as someone once said about Twitter? Because like anything, and I suppose I look at AI like this, where just wait till it gets in the hands of the bad guys and then it all falls to shit. How do you avoid this happening with Post.News?
So this is a great point. And this is why a lot of people decide not to do something. Okay. But in my mind, that's the reason to do something. If we, the rational people, don't do anything and we cede all the platforms to these crazies, and I keep using the word crazy, but these, let's say, authoritarian, non-democratic, non-liberal, liberal in the classic sense, people, right? If we cede it to them, like, what do we expect is going to happen? So we have to try. There are things that are black and white. When someone comes and posts an anti-Semitic rant, that's easy to take down. There are things that are super complicated, right? Misinformation about physics and something. The fact that it's complicated doesn't mean we shouldn't take down the black and white cases. So we're starting from those things. In addition, I've seen with Waze, so with Waze, the community builds the maps and maintains it and does everything around the platform. There's nothing a community won't do, right? If you get the right, you don't need a large number. You need a small number of committed people. You need tools to make sure that there's no abuse of the platform and that they don't abuse it, because obviously everyone has their own interests. You need to treat them very well, and you have to have that open environment with them. But people are willing to do that. Look, Wikipedia today is the number one source of information, right? Trusted globally. And it's run by volunteers. Linux, which any phone or computer we're talking on, if it's a Mac or an iPhone, Linux is managed by a community of people, right, that build it and maintain it. So communities can do phenomenal things. Most people in the world, their life is pretty dull. They come home from work, they turn off their brain, turn on the TV, and just, lie there doing nothing, right? Imagine if they could have some kind of purpose. They could be involved in something that's bigger than themselves. And people want that. I think we're missing that. So what I learned from Waze and what I see from Wikipedia is that if you make it easy enough and you trust the people, and obviously that they're going to be bad actors, you can get there. Will it be perfect? No. Will stuff slip through? Yes. Will it be we'll make a lot of mistakes? Of course. But that's not a reason not to do it.
I like that answer. And it also makes it super interesting. I think you're right. As an overall insight, just for any business owner listening, community in that sense of belonging, is huge amongst us humans, more and more as the world gets crazier and crazier. Yet, not seeing a lot of businesses really embrace that and really take it on as, hey, that's the key insight to build the next business idea or the next product idea. Clearly, that's what you're doing, and I salute that.
So I will say, when we got acquired by Google, I became the community expert of Google. So every product manager would reach out to me, hey, we want to add this community or gamification.
When Waze got acquired?
When Waze got acquired by Google. And I stayed for about 7 years at Google as a VP. And one of the things that I noticed is people want to tag on a community feature on something else. Community is not a feature. It has to be the DNA of the company. At Waze, we have volunteers who can delete the 101 highway, which is the highway in California. They have permissions to delete it. They don't delete it because they have permissions to do that. And it's that trust that we have with them that keeps them engaged. If you just come as a corporation or as a company and say, hey, come do free work for me, obviously no one's going to do that, right? So you've got to have the DNA of the company day one built for a community. It has to be open and you have to trust them. And there will be mistakes. And you have to be willing to accept that. If you're not willing to accept that, don't go down that route.
What's something that slipped through, Noam, where you've woken up one morning and gone, oops, moderators, get it off?
So we've already seen anything you can imagine. We've seen nation states trying to build networks. We've seen a lot of different types of spammers. We've seen a tremendous amount of like adult content and all kinds of things coming in. A lot. What I found is that putting aside the professionals, nation states and spammers, et cetera, I think most people, or at least at Post, what we found is that most people, when they put up hateful content, they just didn't think about how someone else could perceive it. And when you send them an email and say, hey, this content could be perceived this way, they voluntarily take it down and apologize. So
nice. It's
not that everyone really is, at that moment of anger, they wrote something. Now, some really are assholes and they get thrown off the platform, we're not going to accept that. But we have all kinds of really interesting things. Like lately we had a company that makes robotic sex dolls on the platform. Is that pornography? Is there content pornography or not? Like, it's interesting, right? And obviously in Germany, they would think very differently about it than they would in Alabama, right? So
I suppose it's how you pitch it. I mean, here's what you can do with a robotic sex doll is probably pornography. Did you know there are robotic sex dolls and this is how they work? That's educational. So
it's where you sit is where you stand, right? If you're into robotic sex dolls, then of course it's good for you. But I think that the point is that there's a tremendous amount of gray area.
Yeah.
And in the gray area, our goal is to minimize our involvement. The way I explain to our moderators, if you're having a hard time discussing whether you should take it down, then you shouldn't take it down. But at the same time, we don't need to promote it, right? Part of the problem that happens on, let's say, Twitter, Facebook, et cetera, is that someone writes some Nazi shit and they promote it to your feed and you never wanted to see it, but now you're seeing it, right? So if you follow that person and see it, that's fine. But if we promote it, we want to take a more responsibility for that content than we would otherwise. And if it just, you write some hateful stuff and, one person follows you and sees you and that's the end of it, that didn't impact the whole community, I've got bigger fish to fry.
I'm no social media guru at all, Noam, but I just want to test how I would use Post best for this podcast and give people a sense of, like the ideal article. So last week I interviewed the LA real estate agent selling the Brady Bunch house. Okay. So I get him on. He talks about how he got the listing, how he's priced it, how he weeds out the tire kickers, who's likely to buy it, all that kind of stuff. So I post on LinkedIn and Facebook, hey, just interviewed the Brady Bunch, the guy who's selling the Brady Bunch house. This is what I asked him. Link to the episode, happy days. Sometimes it works really well. It really depends on the guest. I don't imagine that being an ideal post on Post. What would be?
No, that will. That will. We have a lot of podcasters who post their podcasts on it. I think what works the best is if you actually provide some context around it, much more sort of a short kind of description of what was discussed, what was in the content. I don't know if you have a transcript of it that you edit, whatever, and then that entices people to read the blog.
So it's essentially a blog. It's more of a blog post that I'm putting on Post.
So again, you can do anything. You can just post it as is. But what we've seen that's worked is putting some context and content around the action that you want, explains to people what they're looking for. But anyone that follows you on Post will get all of your content.
Can I embed an audio player?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
You just paste the URL in and we'll configure
Happy days. Now, you loved Twitter back in the day. You're taking on Twitter. I'll say head to head. You can debate that.
So I wouldn't say that we're taking on Twitter.
But let me finish the question because visually, the brand is close enough looking to Twitter that it makes me wonder, why are you trying to look like Twitter when you started with a white canvas? This thing could have been looked like anything. Is it because you want to play to a bit, oh, that looks familiar, I'm comfortable in this environment? Is that the thinking there, or?
So exactly. What we want the experience to feel familiar when you log in, right? And that's why we tried very much to stay. We've taken elements from Instagram, elements from Facebook, elements from Twitter, but we want to make it very so anyone who's a social media native, who comes in immediately knows what to do. There's no question. So we want it to be about the content, right? That's going to be the difference. The content, the interactions, the conversations, everything that happens around that, not the UI, not how do I like something, how do I, do something else. So we didn't want to try and reinvent the wheel on things that work. We want to try to reinvent the wheel on things that don't work.
It's interesting. I get the familiarity thing, but if every person who's going to start a social media channel in the future takes that point of view, then we're never going to see anything really different. And I just would have thought it was such a great opportunity to go, well, let's forget familiarity and let's trust the fact that our content is what people want. So let's create something that looks vastly different to anything anyone's ever seen. I mean, yeah.
So, having it seem familiar really allowed us to build our initial community. And now we're learning from them, right? We're learning what works, what doesn't work. We're experimenting with different UI elements, and a lot of things are going to change. So if you look at Post a year from now, it's not going to look at all like it looks now. And if, 2 months ago, it didn't look like it looks now. So we're constantly changing and iterating on that. It's more of a question of what are you trying to achieve? And I do believe that, different types of content need different types of posts. There's so much that we want to do around all these different things. We want to allow you to donate your points directly to a nonprofit. We want to do all kinds of things around it. A lot of times you read something and you just want to give the person 50 cents, right? It's like $1, $5. It's like you're engaged in it. You want to thank the person, right? Making that as smooth as possible, as easy as possible.
Yeah, okay.
We borrowed a lot of elements from gaming networks, so Twitch specifically, right? So gaming networks have usually economies built into them that work. And so especially the younger you are, the heavier the gamer, the more natural it all feels. Virtual goods and all these kinds of things. So obviously we there is no right answer when it comes to UI, but we're going to try as much as we can to build different things. And we did not limit ourselves to Twitter in any way.
What I love about what you've done, and it's a bit of a cliche, the old MVP, minimum viable product, that was made famous from the Lean Startup book of many years ago. But what I do love, and this is going to be a really helpful conversation for so many listening, you've got this to market. It certainly ain't perfect. And I think I read a post from you at some point where you talked about that. You apologized for the Times New Roman, and there's just a whole lot of features that you would expect on a social media platform like Post that just aren't there. But you've taken it to market, and so many of us business owners stuff around. I almost would say the smaller the business, the more we stuff around before we take something to market because we're waiting for perfection. Can you just talk to that a little bit, Noam, because you've been in that space for a long time?
Reid from Greylock had a sentence once that said, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, then you shipped too late, right? The whole essence of the MVP and the minimum viable product is that odds are your product's wrong. Until you get into the hands of users, you don't know what it is. And so the goal should be to get it into hands of users, the minimum that you can do as fast as possible, so you don't keep building things that nobody wants. And so we launched in November completely without anything. There was one feed for everyone. And we had to build things on the fly. There are advantages and disadvantages of that, right? But the biggest advantage is that we're constantly getting feedback from the users, and we're constantly learning from them and adapting to it. And we've, tried a lot of things that didn't work, and we're killing a lot of things that didn't work as well. So I would say that, and again, it depends on different businesses and regulation, et cetera. But in general, being embarrassed by your first version is a good thing, right? The most valuable thing you can get is real user feedback. Just watching a user use your app, and it's like you've got this big red button that you wanted to press, and the user's just not seeing it, going all around. You're like, it's right there. Well, no, you did something wrong if the user's not seeing it, right? But you'll never get that unless you see it. And users, whenever something hits the users, you get insights you had never imagined, and both problems and opportunities. So it's a culture also. It's a culture of being willing to take risks, trying things quickly, being able to kill things quickly, not being, connected to the feature, but connected to what you're trying to achieve, right? And so if this feature didn't work, let's try it a different way, right? But a lot of times people get so caught up in the feature that they want, this is how I want it, and they keep optimizing on it when frankly no one else except them really wants it.
The lean startup coins the lovely phrase around what you just said. I think it's sharpen your sword on the stone of the market, which I think is just a really lovely way of putting all that together. To that, just to finish that conversation, Noam, you put something out that is far from perfect. You're super embarrassed about it. What about this notion of you get one chance? What about the notion of some heavy hitters went to Post in the early days and gone, this is a terrible experience, I'm never coming back? How do you manage that?
So first of all, I don't believe you get one chance anywhere. Okay. And I think that, life is about failing multiple times and trying again and trying to figure things out. It's about launching things that don't work and trying to understand why they didn't work, right? And learning from that, who you are and what you're doing. It seems that way, these big launches, right? These big launches always fail. They fail because, again, you don't know what you're launching or why. And that whole model, I think, doesn't work anymore. So I would say that the most important thing is getting user feedback on whatever it is that you're doing. And you should be stressed out. How do I get maximum feedback with minimum cost? Knowing that I'm going to be wrong, right? I'm going to build the wrong thing, okay? But the faster I get into users' hands, the faster I'll know what's wrong, and then they can obviously.
There's something also very powerful about taking on user feedback, not necessarily implementing everything users say, but when you do, them seeing it, they feel, again, that sense of belonging, that contribution, which we all want. So it's a great strategy.
Yes, I agree with you, but, okay, users will ask for things that they've seen. They won't ask for things they haven't seen. They will many times, what's important to listen to is not what they're asking for. It's what is the problem they're trying to solve, right? Because you might solve that problem a different way, right? How do you understand their problem, their frustration, right? And why did your solution not work, for them, right? But if they come and say, no, I want to have 3 buttons here, that doesn't mean you go ahead and build those 3 buttons. You need to ask them, why do you want 3 buttons? And what are these 3 buttons going to do? And why can't 1 button do it? And then you need to figure out what the right solution is, because again, they're not product managers. Nobody knows your business better than you.
We don't know what we don't know, I guess, is the kind of learning there. Let's see how transparent you can be around money, Noam, because I'm fascinated talking to a bloke who's starting a social media network. You one of your first round investors is a firm A16Z, who also gave Musk $400 million to fund his Twitter acquisition. That didn't touch the sides. $400 million, really? Come on, step it up. Is this conflict?
By the way, it's pronounced Andreessen Horowitz. They spell them A16Z, which is a shortening of the word.
Got it. Very Silicon Valley. Is this conflicting? Are they, the fact that you've only got 2 investors, one has given Twitter 400 mil. Are they hedging their bets? How do they separate at their office? Hey, that's the Twitter guys over there and the Post guys over there. Don't go in there.
So we are separate teams. Also, we're early stage and they're sort of private equity. So it's different funds, different teams, different people, and different challenges, right? So that's less of an issue. But there's something about what you said that, I always believe that corporations have this big strategy and plan, and they know what they're doing, whatever. The reality is every company is made of humans. And humans, as we know, are mostly idiots, right? And humans are emotional. And so there really isn't these big, grandiose plans. There's the reality every day. You make an investment here, make an investment there, something happens, it grows. Later on, you look back and you describe it as this big strategy that you had. But I don't think companies operate that way, of having this real discussion. Should we invest in this company and that company? It's like, we have an opportunity here. Let's do it. We have an opportunity here. Let's do it. And then some of them work out.
Interesting. Gee, that's refreshing to hear, because we kind of, us little guys sit back going, they got it all together. Like I'm talking to you, Mr. New Social Media, and Noam's got it all together.
This is my biggest mistake at Waze. When in 2010, Google came out with their first, they called it Navigator then, which was a turn-by-turn navigation for Android, right? Google Maps kind of for Android. And we were devastated. Like that, we were the ones who were going to give it for free. They gave it for free first. You can't give more free than free, right? So it's like, for multiple reasons. And we began assuming, okay, what are they going to do? Well, what Google usually does, it goes from the US to the UK, to Germany, to France. It follows kind of the ad markets. They're going to do that. They're going to open APIs. We're negotiating with ourselves about what's going on there, right? And the reality is, after I got there, I realized I have no idea what's going on in a corporation's head. Some VP is fighting with another VP, so they gave him this, and so they bought that company because his friend was there. And it's like, there isn't these kind of great plans. And so as a small company, the last thing you should worry about is the corporate competitor. They don't know who you are. They don't care who you are. Right? And frankly, you probably have more people working on this problem than they do. No, when we started, we weren't the 200,000 people at Google working. It's whatever people were working on the maps, right, that we're dealing with. And so I think that's the number one thing I learned. Your biggest competitor is yourself, your ability to execute, and your focus on your customer. Everything else is noise. And negotiating with yourself about what someone else is doing when you have no idea what it is your worst use of time.
Yeah, I must say that's certainly my experience working in corporate for many years, where there is no part of the building that you're plotting and planning against the competitor. You are working hard and paddling hard to tell your own story and to get your own ideas out there. And the best, yeah, I hear you. How much have you had to raise, Noam, so far? Can you reveal that?
I'd rather not. We've raised enough money to hopefully get us.
It's not 43 billion.
No, we've not raised 43 billion. And frankly, you don't need it. We're a small team. We're 23 people. You don't need hundreds of people now. It just slows things down, right? As a small, I usually say that if a small focused team can't do something, then it can't be done. Putting more people on is not going to help, right? And so being small and focused really, really helps. Obviously, I would love to have another 30 engineers, and I have work for another 50 engineers, 100 engineers. But, priorities and focus is really the name of the game for startups.
What does the team look like building a social media? You've got 3 moderators. It's just numbers and sort of titles.
Okay, so mostly engineers. We don't really do titles.
No, just for us to understand.
Mostly engineers. And our engineers are broken into front end, back end, and now data science that's coming in. There's obviously product and design, but it's one person. Right? Janet, who runs product, she's amazing, and Efrat that runs the design, and we have one person that deals with the publishers, Andrew, who deals with the publishers globally, and that's about it. And engineers. Everyone else engineers.
Have you employed anyone from Twitter?
No,
not yet.
We don't have anyone from Twitter.
Not yet.
It's not so much not yet. Being an engineer in a large company is very different than being an engineer in a startup. It's a different, most of your time as an engineer in a large company is spent coding in PowerPoint or Docs for a meeting with some lawyers or some execs. You're going to present something. It's like very different than in a startup where you have to execute tomorrow and you ship. Like when our designer joined us, the first day she joined us, we shipped what she designed that day. She couldn't believe it. She came from Facebook. She's like, it would have taken me 3 months in Facebook to get
That's what approval. We love about small business.
And these are different DNAs. By the way, it's not good or bad. It's very different. The point is, you as a small business owner do not understand what's going on in the corporations. Don't even try. And corporations can't do what small businesses do. So they shouldn't try. They do all the time, but they shouldn't. And so just focus on execution and your customers, and it'll all work out.
Naive question, Noam. Essentially, you're building a website. It's a website that has instant interaction between humans all over the world. Where is the expense in these things? Because again, the numbers you see thrown around social media, what they're being bought for, what they're raising, just seem incredible. Is the expense in employing great people and getting them and marketing, are they the 2 big ones where all the money goes?
So the biggest expense usually is people, and it depends on the stage of the company, right? It's usually people, specifically engineers. Engineers are extremely expensive these days, and especially as a small company, you want top talent. So that's where most of the money goes. Second is processing. So the cloud provider, especially AI companies, now that's their biggest expense. AI companies are buying up all the capacity in the world for computing. But mostly for startups, it's just people, right? Now there's a question of if you're going to do marketing, which we don't really do, but if you do like marketing, then you can spend tremendous amounts of money on marketing budgets. And, marketing, you can spend an unlimited amount of money. on it. Doesn't mean you'll get anything, but you can definitely spend it.
If you're not, well, you say you're not marketing. I say marketing is everything and everything is marketing. The fact that you're on this podcast, you are marketing Post.News.
Exactly.
So well done to you for that. But really, you're...
let me define that then. Okay, I'm talking about media buys, right? The most expensive part of marketing is media buys, which are, I think, the least efficient. And real marketing, to me, always starts with the product, right? You cannot market a shitty product. So it's got to be a great product. And then how do you get word of mouth? How do I come on this podcast, right? All those things are all the marketing that really distributes your app or whatever it is. And you need to figure out what's right for you, right? Different mechanisms that make sense for each company. But just to throw money at branding and at media buys can work. And it works. I mean, people put the money because it works, but very, very hard for a small company to make that work.
How are you getting the name out there then? Is it a slow burn? Because obviously what you don't want is 10 million people all of a sudden to join Post, because I imagine the site's going to crash.
That's okay.
Is that okay? Okay,
I don't mind.
We want 10.
Yeah, you can bring them. If you bring the 10 million tomorrow,
we'll make it work. Minimum viable product. I love it. I love it. One last question, Noam, before I let you go, because fascinating conversation. So thank you, brother, for sharing it all. Tell me about AI, because you've already mentioned AI in a positive, in that it's helping with moderation and making sure that Post stays on brand in terms of its content. From a threat point of view, and I've been doing a lot of listening, you know, Lex Friedman's had some wonderful guests over the past few weeks on his podcast talking about AI, often in a kind of scary, negative way. How are you going to stop all the AIs from just posting?
So, you know, the threat that people love to focus on is kind of the Terminator, right? The Skynet, the AI becoming a sentient and destroying us. I don't believe in that at all. Frankly, I'm not afraid of irrational software. I'm afraid of people. I mean, people, the damage people can do to each other, it cannot be replicated by any software. And the problem with AI, it's going to accelerate the good and the bad of people, right? And so the bad actors are getting a great set of tools. The good actors are getting a great set of tools. And, you know, it's going to make every trend we see today is just going to get bigger and faster and larger. But at the same time, no one has any idea what's going to happen with AI, right? Like nobody could have predicted when mobile began what's going to happen. So we see now things that are obvious, right? But how this all shakes out, we don't know. But I think what scares me is humans in general, and humans with AI can do a lot more damage than without AI.
Interesting. It's sort of the gun argument. Guns are okay until a human picks one up.
Well, that's, you know, a gun without a human is not a dangerous thing, right?
That's what I mean.
So, but at the same time, keeping the guns away from people is the challenge.
Yes.
But again, what Australia did there is amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
I wish the US had the same thing. But getting back to how we started about authoritarian regimes, the problem is today we really need strong government, because we're dealing with really big, complicated issues that affect society in AI, et cetera. And globally, we have the weakest governments we've ever had in terms of the quality of the people that go into government, in terms of their ability to govern, you know, their ability to actually get anything done. Like still in the US, no one has regulated social media. Proven damage across multiple spectrums, but yet they can't get together to regulate it.
Incredible.
Right? And so obviously the companies lack it, however they want, there's no regulation. We need strong government now, and we have the worst and the weakest of it to deal with these big challenges coming down the pipeline.
Interesting. Noam, it's been a fascinating conversation. Everyone listening, Post.News. Go and register an account, grab your handle. I was a bit sad that Tim Reid had gone. I had to go Timbo Reid, but hey, that's how people know me. If you can do anything about that, I'd just like @Tim, please, Noam. You know, like I know the owner, mate. Surely you can.
Let's see what we can do. Drop me an email.
Good on you, mate. Noam, I wish you the best of luck, buddy. I'd love to chat to you in 12 months to see where you're at.
I'd love to. And don't forget to bring those 10 million people.
Yeah, okay. I'll bring 10. Thanks, Noam.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Well, there you go, team. Social media disruptor Noam Bardin, founder of Post.News. What a gutsy bloke, and a very good bloke. Very generous too in his insights, I must say. Do you think he's crazy, or is he onto something? I'd love to hear what you think. Give me a buzz. In fact, give the Small Business Big Marketing Hotline a buzz, more to the point, on 0480 015 150 and let me know. That's 0480 015 150. Is Noam Bardin crazy, or is he onto something? Righto, it's time for you to take action on what you've learned, because ideas remain exactly that, without action. If you'd like to support the work I do for small business and want even more of me, then check out my exclusive business owner membership at patreon.com/marketing podcast. It helps me do what I do, and membership starts at a tax-deductible $8.50 a month, and you can trial the silver tier, which is $47 a month for 7 days without obligation. And there is plenty of marketing gold inside. Next week, you and I catch up with another founder, but this time in a very, very different field. Adult sex products, to be exact. Gets a bit naughty, that conversation. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast app, where you'll find 641 more chats with successful business founders to help your beautiful business grow. Big thanks to editor Sam Heathcote for stitching the marketing gold together, and to our in-house rock star Lockie Doley for the fantastic music bed that accompanies this show. More importantly, a really big thanks to you for tuning in, for giving me your time. I really respect that. Thank you. May your marketing be the absolute best marketing. Bye for now.